Hi everyone, it's Evelyn and we're going to get into my top 10 dahlias of 2025. And at the end of them, I'm actually going to go over a few other dahlias and why they don't make my top 10. The reason I wait this late in the season for dahlias to decide which are my top 10 is because my dahlias start blooming in July, usually towards the beginning of July, and they go straight through until our first frost kills them off, which could be anywhere from mid-October to December 1st. It certainly isn't going to be mid-October this year based on our nighttime temperatures. But how they perform in October, possibly November, isn't going to be that much different than September, other than a lot of the dahlias, the dinner plates, will get smaller in size, and some of them will lose their color. For example, AC Loomis becomes much less of a vibrant crimson. However, a lot of the other ones keep their color all the way straight through. And just through experience, I know what those are like. But it does seem to change every year a little bit, the top 10, because I may be trialing a new filler flower to work with it. And that means all of a sudden a dahlia that I wasn't necessarily interested in has now really jumped up in the list because I love how it pairs with a new flower that I'm trialing that I love and will continue to trial. So anyway, I will say that my top 10 are all going to be dinner plates because my flower wagon really is best known for dinner plate dahlias, and people wait to have them in the bouquets. It's how I started my flower wagon. I just started with straight dinner plate dahlias, a single cut stems, no bouquets at all for the first few years. And then when I branched into bouquets, the dinner plate dahlias still became an important part of the bouquets. And I get good vase life on my dinner plate dahlias because I make sure they're well watered. I cut them before they're full size, because if you cut them once they're full size, like a dinner plate dahlia, if it's full size, it's now ending its life and slowly leaving. If you cut it a few days before it's full size, yes, it's smaller, which actually makes it easier to work into the bouquet, but it also gains it several days of vase life. So I can easily get 7 days vase life out of my dinner plate dahlias. So without any further ado, let's get into my top 10. Well, I just had to stop and go make a flower arrangement because while I was filming that first segment, there was a person at the flower wagon who bought a vase arrangement, and I only have one out, so I had to go make another one quickly. Back to the top 10, starting with the 10th. Now, number 10 on my list is Yarra Falls. I love Yarra Falls. The reason it's not any higher up on my list is because it's not actually a dinner plate. It's a little bit smaller than a dinner plate, which means size-wise, it doesn't quite have the same presence in a bouquet as the dinner plates do. So it's a little tricky. So I actually have to leave Yarra Falls on the stems of the plant, of the dahlia plants, longer than I do the dinner plate dahlias, so that they get bigger. And that's why it's actually down at the bottom at 10. But I love the way it looks. It pairs so nicely with some of my other dinner plate dahlias, especially my Spartacus, which is, I've got my flowers over here, which is this one. This pairs really nicely with the Yarra Falls. It's the same shade of red, but of course, as you can see here, the Yarra Falls has the white edges. It also pairs really, really nicely with AC Loomis, which is more crimson, but it's got the white frosting that shows up because the back of the petals are all white, and that makes it pair really nicely with that. And it just pairs well with other dahlias, even if they don't have the same sort of colors in them. So that's why Yarra Falls makes my list, even though it's not a dinner plate, but that's why it's down at number 10. Now, I've got a bouquet with each of my top 10, so you can see how I use it in a bouquet. Now, this bouquet was made on August 28th, and it is paired with lemon red bicolor Pro-Cut sunflowers. And it's also paired with some Pro-Cut white night sunflowers up the top. You can just see Awanda's Aurora tucked in behind the Yarra Falls on this side. And it looks like I might have a Thomas Edison, where that little bit of purple is, tucked in on that side. And then some poppy pods poking out the top, and laurel leaves along the bottom. Coming in at number 9, every year it's a tie. And I purposefully do it as a tie because they're very similar in look and they have all the things that I look for. Tuber production, they're very similar. Productivity of the flowers, they're very similar, which isn't great, but it is one that I like because it's quite different than the other ones that I have, both of them. And they're roughly the same size flower, and that is Wanda's Aurora, as well as Papageno. Now I've got them up here on the screen side by side so that you can see that they're very, very similar. Wanda's Aurora has more of a burnt orange around the outside with that strong yellow on the inside. Papageno has more of the sort of rosy, burnt rosy, earthy tone around the outside and less of the yellow on the inside. I believe I have one Wanda's Aurora here, which has a lot less yellow in it than the one in the picture. The one in the picture was probably taken more in the heat of the summer, and this is what it's now looking like end of September, beginning of October. There's a lot less yellow in it, much, much less yellow in it if I hold it up close. But because it's that two-tone of the yellow and the burnt orange, I love it. And I love it equally the same amount as the Papageno because they look so similar. And side by side, they just add that little bit of subtle difference in color that makes them good to use together, good to use with other things. And ultimately, I don't like one more than the other. The difference would be is instead of growing 10 of one, I would grow 5 of the Papageno and 5 of the Wanda's Aurora because I consider them one and the same, even though they're not. One and the same with slight differences. Now in the bouquets, this one is Wanda's Aurora, and I made this bouquet on September 25th, so really not that long ago. And as you can see, it's got a lot more yellow in it. And it's paired with a red Pro-Cut sunflower. It's got some Cosmos Double Click Cranberry, as well as Double Click Snow Puff coming out the top. And you'll just see a few snowberries at the top coming out of this as well, and of course the laurel leaves below. For the Papageno bouquet, I made this on September 30th. You can see it's got much more rosy undertones to it. Earthy rose though, versus I'll just pop back to the Wanda's Aurora bouquet. They are very similar and yet different. And with the Papageno one, bouquet, I've got it paired with Gold Light Pro-Cut sunflowers. I've got some, what are those pink double cosmos called? I can't remember. I'll put it up on the screen. As well as the cranberry double clicks. I've got the snowberries up the top and of course the laurel leaves below too. And you can see a Yarra Falls just tucked in beside the Papageno. So you can see in this bouquet how well the Yarra Falls works with the Papageno. So those are both my number 9. And there's no way I would say number 9 and number 8 because I consider them a package deal. And like I said, I plant half as many of each for the same amount for the full package. So then we come into number 8, and that is AC Ben. Now, AC Ben is interesting. I absolutely love the color of it. It is such a great autumnal dahlia for this time of year because of its orange shades. It's not a very good heat dahlia. Just one sec. Excuse me. It's not a very good dahlia in the heat, but it's a fantastic dahlia for September, October, November. It is a really, really good tuber producer. Hello, Leela. So I know I'm always going to get really good, healthy, fat tubers from it. The problem is it's not high in production of flowers. And it's very, very disappointing in its production of flowers. And I've been growing it for years, so it's not like one year to the next is different. It's every year, it's a low productivity. So I am going to be trialing out a new dahlia for 2026 that could potentially one day replace AC Ben because it has the same coloring, although not that little bit of yellow in it. And If it performs really, really well with flowers as well as tubers, AC Ben, I might do that like I do with Papageno and Wanda's Aurora, or I do 50-50, because I would like to have more flowers in this color range to use, but because of its low flower production on the AC Ben, I would have to grow so many more, and I don't want to. I would rather have a tangerine colored dahlia that is more productive in its blooms. So this is the bouquet I have with AC Ben in it, and it's paired with a red lemon bicolor Pro-Cut sunflower. It's got a Yarra Falls off on the other side. It's got the double click snow puff, double click cranberry, and the double click pink one, whose name I forget. I should know what it's called, but I don't. Usually I don't blank out on its name. Again, it'll be up on the screen. And of course the snowberries up the top, as well as the laurel leaves. And this bouquet was made on September 15th. I'm showing you a lot of bouquets that were made in September. So then we're going to move on to number 7. Now, number 7 has pushed its way up my list this year, and that's Thomas Edison. And that is solely because this is the first year I tried my evergreen gladiolas, and I really love how Thomas Edison looks with the evergreen gladiolas. To me, that's a winning combination. And I wish I had more Thomas Edison than I did. I only had 2 growing because it's never been a dahlia that I've used a lot. I've had a hard time working that purple into bouquets, but it's a color that I love. But that big, massive purple hasn't worked for me in past years in bouquets. So I've mostly used it in my pop cans. But when I saw how well it paired with the evergreen, now I definitely want to grow more of them. So yeah, the Thomas Edison can be a really, really good producing dahlia. I have not given it my best producing spots to this year or the past few years because it hasn't been one that I have looked forward to using in bouquets. That will change for 2026. And it's got decent tuber production, not great, not like some of the others, but decent. It's not like bad tuber production. In this bouquet, you can see I've got it paired with purple marjoram as well as a couple of sunflowers. I believe one is white knight and one is yellow, both Pro-Cuts, because Pro-Cuts are the only ones I grow because they are pollenless. And the laurel leaves. And this bouquet was made on August 4th. August, I had a lot of gladiolas. So August was my gladiola month. I succession plant them each week. And I'm going to be growing more next year and start the successions earlier and have them go until later because of that. So that'll be good. So we're now going to move on to Spartacus was my number 7. We're now going to move on to my number 6 dahlia, which is, no, not Spartacus, Thomas Edison was my number 7. My number 6 dahlia is Tartan. So Tartan is a dinner plate dahlia that I love. I have loved it since the first year that I grew it. For whatever reason, I've never grown many of them. That is going to change. I want to grow more of them for 2026 than I have been. I've only been growing a couple of plants a year. I think it's because in the past, I was trialing so many individual ones, and I've been narrowing it down, eliminating and then growing more of my top ones and then eliminating and so forth and so on, that as much as I loved Spartacus, I wasn't at a place where I was prepared to grow more of them yet because I was busy growing more of other ones. But yeah, I really do like Tartan, and I do want to grow more of it for 2026. And, oh no, I totally forgot. Last year, I wanted to grow more of them, and I had ordered through my wholesaler, a wholesale order, which is 8. And that's when I got Yarra Falls, because all but one of the tartan packages, there was like 1 tuber per package, and they were all labeled tartan. But 7 of the 8 ended up being Yarra Falls. That's how I discovered Yarra Falls, and it was a nice mistake because I do love Yarra Falls. But on the other hand, instead of all of a sudden having a whole pile of tartans, I didn't. I only had 1 extra. So that's what happened with tartan. Now, I'm not doing a spring wholesale order this year, but I am going to go to my local Campbell River Garden Center, give them a spring order, and I've gone over what the new to me ones will be in that spring order, but there's also going to be on that order that I'm giving them some of the ones that I'm already growing, and tartan is one of them, because I do want to increase my tartan stock. It is such a beautiful dahlia to use in bouquets, and it pairs really beautifully with the Yarra Falls. I don't have one. I thought I had one there for a sec. And it pairs well with a few others as well. So, and again, it looks good with the evergreen gladiola because of the purple. The purple and that strong chartreusey color of the evergreen gladiola look really, really good together. So in this particular bouquet that I'm showing you, you can see it actually has an evergreen gladiola just coming up beside it. And I've also got a Pro-Cut white light sunflower and a Pro-Cut orange sunflower on the other side, as well as purple marjoram. There is some laurel leaves in here, and this bouquet was made on August 12th. And yeah, I love it with the chartreuse of the evergreen gladiola as much as I love Thomas Edison with it. And really, tartan and Thomas Edison make a good pairing together as well. So if I do one glad, one tartan, and one Thomas Edison, that would be a really nice combination of 3 in the bouquet. So definitely going to be increasing my order of the tartans for next year. I don't know why I didn't increase them this year. That was the question that I can't remember, because last year I had tried to increase my stock. Unfortunately, I ended up with the Yarra Falls, which was fortunate because I love it. I may have just forgotten to buy some tartan this spring. May have just completely slipped my mind. That's why I didn't have more of them. I only had 3 plants. We're about halfway through my top 10 dahlias, so if you're enjoying this video so far, please give me a like. It helps with the algorithm, as does subscribing. Let's get back to the video. So coming in at number 5 is Lindsay Michelle. Lindsay Michelle is really cool because that two-tone effect of it with that really strong yellow and that really strong fuchsia means it's a great one to pair with Wanda's Capella because it's got the same sort of yellow in it. It actually looks really good with Cafe au lait Rose. It's stunning with AC Loomis. And it looks really good with what I call Park M that you can't buy because these were decorative cactus. These were cactus dahlias that started off as Park Princess and then reverted. And I've got several plants of these going that are a no name. I just call them Park M for Park Princess, and the M is EM for Evelyn M. But it goes really good with the Lindsay Michelle as well. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a Lindsay Michelle to show you in real life that's fresh. But fortunately, I can show you what one looks like when it's 6 days old. So this is a Lindsay Michelle that's been sitting in water for 6 days. So you can see that as it opens up fuller, you lose that pink center because the pink is really on the outside. So when it's at my harvesting stage, it's got that really pink center and has it for quite a few days. But as the dahlia continues to open in a vase, because if you're not picking it harvesting it when it's fully open, it will continue to open, which is why it gains longer vase life. Again, this is day 6, and if you look at the back of it, it's still perfectly fine. But it starts to change its appearance. It becomes far more yellow with just the pink on the edges. Now I'm just going to show you close up on this one. So these have what are called lacinated petals. Hang on, I gotta do this where I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to grab a petal. See if I can show that to you. So lacinated petals are when there's just one petal there. They curl around, but they're split at the ends. And that's called lacinated. So this is a lacinated dahlia. Anyway, I just thought that was really interesting that you could see what a 6-day-old Lindsay Michelle looks like, because it does look quite a bit different than its picture, whereas most of the other dahlias look pretty much the same 6 or 7 days from now as they do at harvesting, just not Lindsay Michelle. So here's a bouquet where I've got Lindsay Michelle poking out the top. I've got a Pro-Cut Gold Light Sunflower towards the front. I have a Vasio Megas strong sort of bluish pink off to one side, dinner plate dahlia. There's Pro-Cut White Night sunflowers in here. You can see an Orleans Early Lemon Snapdragon coming up from behind everything, and of course laurel leaves. And this bouquet was taken on September 8th. So now we're going to talk about my number 4 dahlia, which is Cafe au lait Rose. I love Cafe au lait Rose, and it's a fairly new dahlia to me. I've only grown it for a few years, and the reason I've only grown it for a few years is because I was specifically looking for a different shade of pink than what I already had. I have been growing Labyrinth for quite a few years. This is Labyrinth, and I've got another one here that's a little bit bigger. And it's got sort of salmon-y tones in there with sort of pale pinks. Makes a nice pairing with the Cafe au lait Rose. I was also growing Penn's Gift, which was more of a bluey pink, kind of like this one, what I call Park M. But I wanted something that was a different shade of pink. I don't grow Penn's Gift anymore because it's a really large dinner plate dahlia. I think it's got a 13-inch diameter. And because it's so much bigger than the other mostly 10-inch dinner plates that I grow, it was really hard to work in bouquets, and with that big splash of that blue pink, I found it too much. Kind of like dinner plates that are solid white, that big splash of just white, I find too much in a bouquet, to use in a bouquet. Pop cans fine, but not in bouquets. But anyway, so I was looking for a different shade of pink, and I trialed out Cafe au lait Rose, and I really liked it. So the next year, instead of growing 1, I grew 2. And then last year, which was last year, and then last year I grew espresso gladiolas, which are a deep red gladiola, and Cafe au lait Rose paired so nice with that. So this year I grew 4 Cafe au lait Rose, and next year I want to grow even more. So this bouquet, you can see it with the espresso gladiola. This bouquet was made on July 29th. And you can see how the shade of the Cafe au lait Rose and the espresso gladiola look so good together. The deep dark shadows within the Cafe au lait Rose really draw out the colors in the espresso gladiola. You can also see tucked in around the back of the bouquet, paired with the Cafe au lait Rose, is an AC Loomis with its little white frosting on it. And those two make a nice pairing as well. This one will get as big as this one. I just picked it a little earlier than that. If I'd left it on the mother plant, it would continue to get bigger. But AC Loomis is actually one that gets a little bit smaller as it gets colder outside, whereas Cafe au lait Rose does not appear to be affected by the change in temperature at all. And I'm really enjoying using that. Cafe au lait Rose is really, really good in the heat. So is Spartacus, by the way, as well as Yarra Falls. The only one in the of the other ones that I've talked about that isn't necessarily the greatest in the heat. Let me just go back and have a look. Yarra Falls was good in the heat. Wanda's Aurora and Papageno were okay in the heat. AC Ben's not great in the heat. Thomas Edison was okay in the heat. Tartan's okay in the heat. Lindsay Michelle it's not the best in the heat because it's got those really thin petals that sort of wrap backwards, and then the lacination, of course, that tends to dry out. Cafe au lait Rose is great in the heat. Anyway, in this bouquet, I've got it paired with a couple more Pro-Cut White Light Sunflowers. I've got Purple Marjoram, and I've got some poppy pods as well as laurel leaves. So then we're going to come down to Labyrinth. Now Labyrinth, I just showed you 2. This is really interesting because I have Labyrinth growing in 2 beds because the first bed that I grow them in, there's 10 across. And I wanted to grow more than 10 because I really like Labyrinth and use a lot of them. So I put a few more into the bed that was beside it, which gets a little bit more shade. But if you look at them, the bed, this one, that gets a little bit more shade, it's got a slightly darker color to it. It's slightly wispier as well than this one. So it's interesting that even though there's only a 4-foot path between the two dahlia beds, and even still, the one bed gets a darker, wispier labyrinth than the other bed, which is fine because it just adds a little bit more interest into the bouquet. And the other thing is when it was really, really hot out, the normal bed that I grow them in with the 10 produced like crazy. They produced and they produced and they produced. And then I think they went into a slight state of exhaustion from producing so much. And as they sort of went into a rest mode, the ones in the other bed really came on strong. And now they're going in a slight rest mode, and these ones are back online producing like crazy. So it's really, really interesting how that happened. But because that happened, I had high production of my labyrinth dahlias straight through the whole season till now, which was really good, instead of having a little spot where they weren't there. And so I've been able to cut just tons of the labyrinth for my bouquets. And people really like them as singles in the pop cans as well. So that's one reason it's up there at my number 3. It's highly productive, got really good tuber production. People love it. And yeah, there's nothing really bad I can say about labyrinth at all. Here it is in a bouquet. You can tell just by looking at the labyrinth that this particular labyrinth was taken from the bed of 10, which gets a bit more sun. It is paired again with an espresso gladiola. It's got what looks like a Wanda's Aurora, just slightly higher than it. Oh, and yeah, I think I showed you that it looks really good with Wanda's Aurora. If I pull that out, you can see, just move that out of the way a bit. They look really nice together. So, you know, if you take the darker labyrinth with it, you've got a really nice pairing of 3 dahlias that all look slightly different, because this does look a little different than this one, which just together creates a lot of visual interest all the way around the bouquet, because each one has a very comfortable look with each other, but enough of a difference to keep you looking. Anyway, so in this particular bouquet, you've got the Wanda's Aurora coming out the top. You've got what looks like a Pro-Cut plum sunflower. Try that again. A Pro-Cut plum sunflower just above a Pro-Cut red lemon bicolor sunflower. It's got the purple marjoram coming out the top and around the gladiola, as well as some laurel leaves down around the bottom. And this bouquet was taken on August 12th. So that brings us to our number 2 dahlia, which is AC Loomis, which I've talked about already a few times. So I'll pull it out. So AC Loomis makes my number 2 for many reasons. Highly productive tubers. One of the first dinner plate, I think it is the first dinner plate to bloom for me. So it starts blooming, I think in the second week of July, I start getting blooms of AC Loomis. And of course it goes straight through till the first frost. So I have almost the longest season of flowers to cut on my AC Loomis dinner plate dahlias over all the other dahlias. Like I said, it's got highly productive tubers. It's a highly productive flower producer. It is really interesting with its little white frostings in there, which is on the tips, which basically come from the backs of the white petals. So that adds a lot of movement and sunlight into the bouquet, which is nice to have. And yeah, this is another one that I can't say anything bad about. So the only reason it bumps Labyrinth is because it's also much, much better in the heat than Labyrinth, but it's also good through the whole year. Good tubers, good flowers, good heat, long-lasting, and again, one of the earliest ones to bloom for me. And it will get bigger because I cut this when it was slightly on the smaller side because I had wanted to show it to you today. So number 3, number 2, and they look really good together as a pairing as well. The bouquet I'm showing you this bouquet was taken on July 27th, and I have it paired with an espresso gladiola, purple marjoram. I've got a little bit of gold yarrow tucked in there, some poppy pods, a Pro-Cut bicolor red lemon or red lemon bicolor sunflower, and of course the laurel leaves. Yeah, I really like AC Loomis. So now we're going to talk about the number one dahlia, which is Spartacus. Those of you who follow me would probably have guessed that it's Spartacus because I always talk about how much I love it. Now Spartacus is a completely red dahlia. Every so often it has just a touch of gold on a leaf, but this one does not have that. It is also one of the earliest blooming dinner plate dahlias for me. And in fact, this year, I think it bloomed before AC Loomis, which I believe is the first year that that's happened. This is probably, next to Labyrinth, my most productive dahlia. It's much more productive than AC Loomis, who is really productive. Labyrinth, which is this one, of course, and Spartacus are the two most productive when it comes to flowers. Spartacus is also really productive when it comes to tubers. Holds up exceptionally well to the heat. Doesn't lose. The only reason it bumps out AC Loomis, well, you could say it bumps it out a bit because it's more productive in its flowers, but it's also the one that holds up, hands down, the best in the heat. You get the longest vase life out of Spartacus. AC Loomis is pretty close, but not, you could probably get one more day out of Spartacus than AC Loomis. Yeah, definitely my number one dinner plate dahlia. So in this bouquet, this was taken on July 14th, and I've got it paired with, again, a Pro-Cut bicolor red lemon sunflower. I've got it paired with a Costa Silver Snapdragon, a Chantilly Bronze Snapdragon, poppy pods. You can see a little blue mophead hydrangea tucked in there. And you can actually see I've got another Spartacus in the bouquet with it. It's so productive that I am quite often cutting more than several a day. So I generally have more of it available to use for bouquets than any of the other colors, just because it's so productive. But again, I've got more than 10 of it. It stretches into the other bed as well for about 3. But those 3 where it's shadier are not as productive as the ones that are in the sun. And it does not have a slight downtime where it's regaining its energy for going like crazy again. So we're now going to talk about some of the dahlias that I love and I grow and will always grow, although the first one we're going to talk about, I kept saying I was going to stop growing, and I have decided I will not stop growing it. But they don't make my top 10 for a variety of different reasons. And the first one we're going to talk about is Kenora Macab B. It doesn't make my top 10 because it's a late bloomer. All of my other top 10 dahlias are usually producing flowers long before Kenora Macab B starts producing flowers. But it really picks up its productivity in the fall. It is very much the same color as Spartacus, but it's got a totally different texture to it. It's more of the texture of the Lindsay Michel, where it's got the lacinated petals, and it's really full with those little petals. So you can pair it with Spartacus and create interest just by the difference in the texture of the two. One thing that was really interesting about Kenora Macab B last year is when we did get our killing frost, which was, I believe, in the final week of October last year, for some reason, Kenora Macab B was fine. All the other dahlias packed it in because we had a hard frost. And Kenora Macab B just kept living its good life, blooming away each day. Now, that doesn't do me any good. I'm not going to keep the flower wagon going just because one type of dahlia is still producing blooms. It's not going to produce enough for, or at least not the number I was growing. It's not going to produce enough for me to have kept the flower wagon going. But I could not believe that it did not die in that frost. Strange. Anyway, you can see it here in this bouquet. It has a totally different look than the Spartacus does in a bouquet. I'm going to see if I can just put up the Spartacus bouquet right next to it. So you can see the difference in the texture. The colors are the same, Spartacus tends to look a little bit lighter, and that's just light reflection. You can see this in the bouquet. This one does have a little gold streak in one of its petals. The two dinner plates are very much the same color, but because Kenora Maccabee has those really thin lacinated petals and that the head is really, really full, it's not letting much light into it, so it's not getting that reflection of light that the Spartacus gets. So while they are the same color, it does, in a photograph, look much deeper. Anyway, in the Kenora Maccabee bouquet, which was taken on September 26th, I have it paired with AC Loomis, which is this one, which was my number 2. Rose Bonbon Double Collect Cosmos. That's the pink one. Rose Bonbon Double Collect is paired in here as well. Snowberries, as well as some Pro Cut Orange sunflowers, yeah, and laurel leaves. So I have decided I will always grow Kenora Maccabee, because for 2 or 3 years I've been saying I'm going to not grow it, and then I have to grow it because I really like it. So if I haven't listened to myself for 3 years, and I'm always really happy that I have it in the garden growing, clearly I want to grow it. I may not grow 10, but how many am I growing this year? I think I'm growing 3. I may increase that 3 to a slightly higher number. So then there is this. The next dinner plate dahlia was in my top 10 every year until this year, and that is my Wanda Scapella, which is my only solid yellow dinner plate dahlia that I grow. And I'm really sad that it's not in my top 10 anymore. So this was the first dinner plate dahlia that I ever grew. Well, along with Show and Tell, which I don't grow anymore. And people really loved it. And it was always a hit at my flower wagon. It's got really good tuber production. It's got really good flower production. May not be as good in the heat as my other top 3, but people really, really loved it. And it was different enough from the others because it's a solid yellow that I was happy to grow tons of it. And then I noticed last year, for some reason, it wasn't a big seller. So the bouquets that I used Wanda Scapella in it last year weren't really selling. And I did a test. I don't know if you can hear the, is that going to be an ambulance or a fire truck or a police car going by? Oh, ambulance. I did a test last year where I had 2 bouquets out at a time. One with, because when I just had one and the Wanda Scapella was in it, it wasn't selling. So I would put 2 out, the Wanda Scapella and one with Spartacus or AC Loomis or whatever as the main dinner plate dahlia in it. And the Wanda Scapella bouquet still was not selling. And I thought that that was just an anomaly last year, and then the same thing happened this year. It has, for this year and last year, the yellow dahlias are not popular. Prior to last year, very, very popular. So it's been such a important dinner plate dahlia in my dahlia beds that I actually grow more of it. I've grown more than 10 of the Labyrinth and the Spartacus and the AC Loomis, but I was also growing more than 10 of the Wanda Scapella. I was growing 12. And for next year, I'm going to cut that way back because it's not one that sells well at all. It will sell in the pop cans, but I think I'm going to cut it down to maybe only 6 plants. Yeah, because because I want yellow. I do want yellow dinner plate dahlias because it's the only yellow one that I have, and it does pair really nicely with the Lindsay Michelle, especially when there's a bit more fuchsia in it than this. And it does go well with the evergreen gladiolas, but yeah, it's just not a dahlia that has been selling for the last 2 years. So, you know, tastes change, and for that reason, it's no longer in my top 10. Still, I love the way it looks in bouquets. You can see it in this bouquet. It's paired with a Pro Cut Plum Sunflower, as well as Cosmos Double Click Rose Bonbon, and snowberries coming at the top, and laurel leaves around the bottom. And this bouquet was taken on September 19th. So there was a dahlia that I trialed this year, which was a sport of Spartacus. And a sport of Spartacus means A Spartacus grew that had anomalies in it, and then they drew out the anomalies through tissue culture, and every time the anomaly got bigger, they could draw it out more and more and more. So basically, its parent plant was Spartacus, so I was really looking forward to growing it because we all know how much I love Spartacus. And I had stopped growing Pen's Gift, which was a bluish pink, because it was just too big and its petals were just too messy for me to enjoy using. It looked great in the garden, but you know, that doesn't do me any good. I can't use it in a bouquet. So the Vasiomegas ones had the same color as Pen's Gift. It has had this, in theory, had the same shape as Spartacus, and would presumably, being a sport of it, perform as well, and it did not. In the heat of the summer, it just shattered every time I touched it. It stopped shattering when the temperatures cooled off, but it never got full-headed like Spartacus. Like Spartacus, as it continues to mature, it will bend back its petals so that it's more rounded out, kind of like the picture of Vasiomegas that you have up here. Well, Vasiomegas never got any more than flat. But the other thing it did, which I really don't like, is its head tips downwards a bit. So it's a downward-facing dahlia, or at least mine. And that's really, I have to use the laurel leaf underneath it and push its head up in a bouquet so that it stays up. So it's difficult to use. So that was a trial for me this year. I believe I trialed 2 of them. I will not be growing any more of them. I will probably still grow the 2 because unless I don't have room, and then I won't, because honestly that downward facing aspect to it is not good. And the fact that it's shattered in the heat is not good. So I may actually decide to eliminate it. We shall see. That'll just give me a couple of spots for other dahlias that I'm increasing the amount on, or for ones that I'm trialing out. But yeah, very disappointed in the Vasiomegas. So that was one of the experiments for me this year, which I think was a fail. But it does look good in a bouquet, and look how beautiful it looks with the Cafe au lait rose. I mean, they're stunning together, which is what makes it hard, because it's a color that I want to have in my dahlia beds. Pen's Gift had it, but I don't want to grow Pen's Gift. Vasiomegas has it, but I don't want to grow Vasiomegas anymore. Anyway, in this bouquet, there is also Pro-Cut Gold Light Sunflowers, Orleans Early Lemon Snapdragons. There's a Chantilly Bronze Snapdragon in the back, poppy pods, and of course there will be laurel leaves around the bottom. And this bouquet was taken on August 30th. So then, this isn't making my top 10. I haven't been able to take a good picture of it. And this is the one that started off as a cactus dahlia called Park Princess, which is only a 4-inch blossom. And then one year, and I loved it. Another ambulance going by. And I loved it. All of my Park Princesses. And then one year they all reverted to this. Every single one of my Park Princess tubers ended up being this, which is a nice big dahlia. And I do quite like it. And it does have that blue pink in it that I like. And it does go with Cafe au lait rose for that reason, right? And it goes with a few of my other dahlias as well. It goes really nice with my AC Loomis as well. Why it's not in my top 10 is, first of all, I don't know what it is. It's a reversion from my Park Princesses. It's not whereas Park Princess produces a lot of flowers, this reversion of it does not produce a lot of flowers. It got better tuber production than the Park Princess. But then this year, out of the blue, one of the tubers of this has now reverted back to Park Princess. So now I don't know if I save all the tubers and grow however many I want again for next year, will I get these or will I get Park Princess again? It's a bit of an anomaly and a strange situation that I have never heard of before, but I can't put it in my top 10 because I can't trust it. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on the dinner plate dahlias, my top 10 and a few others. If you have any questions on any of them that you would like to have answered, put them in the comment section below, and I'll definitely answer them, because I'm sure there's lots of questions that I haven't answered. I will say that watering your dinner plate dahlias is really, really important. They require a lot of water when it's hot out. If it's cooler temperatures, you can get away with watering once a day. Once you start getting into the heat of the summer, they should really be watered twice a day, morning and evening. And when it gets super, super hot, then you might even consider 3 times a day. And the reason for that is, and this one's a good example of that, because where I cut it down low, it's got a thicker stem. And you can see just how hollow that stem is. That's full of water when it's on the plant. They go through a lot of water. So unlike most of your other cut flowers, the dinner plate dahlias need a lot of water. And if you give it to them, they will hold up much better when cut. And I have a bucket of water with me. I cut it and it goes straight into the water. I never leave it out of the water for very long. I'm leaving them out of the water right now, and I really shouldn't. But anyway, that's a very, very important thing. Harvest them before they're fully open so that you get a better vase life of them as well. They're not going to be as big and showy as if you wait till they're full size, but you'll get better vase life out of them, and they're still big enough and showy enough in bouquets, as you saw by all the examples that I showed. For length, for when I cut a dahlia, what I do is I go out into the garden and I put my elbow where the flower head is, and then I reach down and then I cut below my fingers where I grab the stem. And for me, that's the length I go by. So that's how this gets a thicker stem, because I could have just cut here, but it's too short. So all of my dinner plate dahlias get cut to the length of where the flower is at my elbow. I hold the stem and then I cut below it. And I don't stake my dahlias. So when I water them, I use a hose. I hold the hose and I point it in all 4 directions of the dahlias, and I water on the top and everything else. That helps with pest control. It also helps with stabilizing the stem. Just like with trees who get a lot of wind, if the wind is pushing around on a tree, it stabilizes the trunk. When the dahlia is smaller and you're aiming the hose at it, it's pushing it in the direction that the hose is spraying out at it, because I have a reasonably strong, not too strong, I mean, I don't want to damage the plants, but that creates a stronger stem on the dahlia. I mean, I do this and you can see it. There's hardly any movement in there at all, because I'm really working on stem strength by using the hose when I'm watering. I don't do any, oh, I forgot what's that's called. Drip. I don't do any drip irrigation. And, you know, like I can take this one and you can see if I tip it this way, the stem's not moving. If I take this one and I go like that, the stem's not moving. So once we get into the windier season, they can brace themselves against the wind, because they've been bracing themselves all these months against the water. I also plant the tubers. When I plant my plants, they're pre-started, and I plant them where the tuber is 6 inches below the surface of the soil. And that also helps, the soil helps hold that stem against the tuber so that it never breaks away from the tuber. And I pre-start all my dahlia plants February 1st. And so that I can, when I get them planted out into the dahlia beds after the last frost date, so I usually plant them out the last week of April. They're already plants. So when I get the tuber at the 6 inches below soil surface, I've already got about a 4 to 6 inch plant above the soil surface. They're already growing, which is important to me because we are in a wet climate. So they're already in a state where they're drinking a lot of moisture instead of accidentally rotting in the ground. So those are just some quick tips and thoughts about how I have my dahlias perform well, with not require staking, doing well with vase life, how I get them blooming earlier by starting them so early, February 1st in the seed room. If you'd like to see how I actually put them together in bouquets, check out this video up here, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye.